In fact, there was so much partition was always there were three, my father and two of his brothers who worked in Lahore. They belonged to a small village called Tar near Gujranwala.
I
Tar
see.
village. My
Acha,
father.
father.
Okay. But he studied and he studied in. He had the good fortune of studying, doing his school in Jammu with his mother's family, and then coming to Government College Lahore. So he studied in Lahore. Then he was an adventurer. He was very bright. He was an adventurer. So after doing his BA from Lahore, the famous college, Government College, he managed to get a job with a very well-known person, Khizar Hayat Khan's village. You know, my mother,
Beautiful.
when she got married and went to Lahore, now compared to Lahore, Rawalpindi is a humble city. But she carried a chip on her shoulder that जो है वो साडा पठवार है, रावलपिंडी है, ऐसे शहरी लोकां च मैं आ गई हां. So she kept a little superior edge that I'm from Rawalpindi. After partition, my parents went to Shimla. He was government job. He was in a government job, my father. And when he retired, that time Chandigarh had come up. So they decided to. Chandigarh was Nehru's compensation for the loss of Lahore, but nothing like Lahore. This was a city built by a foreigner, Le Corbusier city, and very, very modern, nothing traditional about it. No roots, it didn't have roots, These were mango growing area, mango groves, which were cut down to build Chandigarh. So then they moved to Chandigarh.
तकसीम हिंद 1947, The Bloody Partition of Punjab, तनाज़ कश्मीर 1965 की पाक भारत जंग, सानियाए मशरकी पाकिस्तान और भारत का किरदार, खालिस्तान मूवमेंट और ऑपरेशन ब्लू स्टार, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी का दौरा लाहौर और कारगिल जंग, इंडियन पार्लियामेंट पे हमले, मुंबई हमले, बालाकोट पे भारतीय हमला, कलभूषण यादव और बलोचिस्तान, तनाज़ात और इल्ज़ामात में अमन की तलाश. Watch Indo Pak Dialogue with Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed and leading voices from India. Talking Politics on Federal Post. अस्सलामुअलैकुम, मैं हूं हसन जफर. ये है टॉकिंग पॉलिटिक्स स्पेशल एपिसोड इंडो पाक डायलॉग. चंडीगढ़ से आज हमारे साथ हैं मोहतरमा निरूपा दत्त और स्वीडन से हमारे साथ होते हैं डॉक्टर इश्तियाक अहमद साहब. तो डॉक्टर साहब, आपकी इजाज़त से मैडम का तारुफ कराएं. शी इज़ अ पोएट, ट्रांसलेटर, ऑथर एंड जर्नलिस्ट एंड शी राइट्स इन पंजाबी, इंग्लिश एंड हिंदी, और चंडीगढ़ में रहती हैं. हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स के लिए लिखती भी हैं. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपके वक्त देने का, ज्वाइन करने का. बाकी डॉक्टर इश्तियाक अहमद साहब, ज़रा आपका मज़ीद तारुफ कराते हैं हमारे साथ. आपकी क्या दिलचस्पियां हैं और आपका आपस में तारुफ क्या है, डॉक्टर साहब?
निरुपमा दत्त जी जो हैं, इनसे मेरी मुलाकात कम से कम 2002 या 3 से है. वे बैक जब मैं पंजाब की पार्टीशन पे काम कर रहा था. सो आई मेट निरुपमा जी वे बैक in 2003, but we were already in touch through the emails, huh? And I had been writing about Lahore and the Hindus and Sikhs who exited Lahore in 47, and her family belonged to that category. They are originally from Rawalpindi, but also uh, had a house in Garden Town, Lahore at the time of partition. And they are Mohayal Brahmins. This group is known as Hussaini Brahmins.
Yes.
Sunil Dutt was one, and many other. Whenever you see a Dutt, more or less he would be a Punjabi. So although we have Guru Dutt, who was from all the way south, but normally the Dutts are from our part of Punjab. So when I was in India doing my research for the Punjab book, she helped me get in touch with many of the people who were affected by the partition, and the interviews were done, some of them in her presence. So I'm in great debt to her. I have met her many times in Delhi and then in Chandigarh, met her daughter also. So it's a long, long association.
Yes. तो निरुपमा जी आप बताइए ये if you like to talk about ये जो background है और सैनिक वाला your work as you
It was my pleasure and my good luck that I met Ishtiaq ji. He had just about started, he was interviewing people. And I think Amarjit Chandan, Punjabi poet, put me through to you, if I'm not wrong.
Possibly.
And I reached, I think it was Amarjit Chandan. And one connecting thing was Muhammad Rafi, because I had at that time done some stories on Muhammad Rafi's village.
Yeah,
so that was what I shared with Ishtiaq ji. And then he was kind enough to take me to some of his interviews. And I would sit and hear such painful stories we went all the way to across Delhi to meet a person, who an old man who had been affected. And then my sister, who was some 27 years older to me, for her, it was such a treat. She was by that time close to dementia, but to meet someone from Lahore, and I recall she told Ishtiaq ji that वहां तो बादाम, dry fruit, ये वो, ऐथे आके तो कुछ नहीं देखा, बस मूंगफली देखी है. She was, it was a,
it was very touching.
ऐथे
Very
कनन बस
touching.
मूंगफली.
तो खन्ना साहब जिथे रहने वाले ने बीटन रोड that is the center for all the dry fruit और
ਲੇਕਿਨ ਸਾਰਾ ਡਰਾਈਡ ਫਰੂਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਐਂਡ ਅਰਾਊਂਡ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸੋ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ
ਜੀ ਜੀ
Yeah, Pakistan is the center. Good, great fruit. When I went as a child, we saw fruits which he had never seen before. And another thing, also, you see, partition ravaged families. Their wealth was lost, money was lost. They had to start all over again. And probably they could not afford that kind of expensive fruit anymore. So it was also a story of great struggle, for people who came here.
Very true.
And in fact, there was so much. Partition was always, there were three, my father and two of his brothers, who worked in Lahore. They belonged to a small village called Tar, near Gujranwala. Tar village. My father. But he studied and he studied in, he had the good fortune of studying, doing his school in Jammu with his, mother's family, and then coming to Government College Lahore. So he studied in Lahore. Then he was an adventurer. He was very bright. He was an adventurer. So after doing his BA from Lahore, the famous college, Government College, he managed to get a job with a very well-known person, Khizar Hayat Khan's village, Shahpur, if I'm not wrong.
Shahpur, yeah, in Sargodha, Shahpur. Yes,
he got the tutors, the extended families, children in English.
I see.
He was very bright in English. And that time my mother was my father's second wife. That time it was the first wife, who died young. And my father was given I don't even remember what years it would be. I was born much later in Chandigarh. So he was given some princely sum of 400 rupees a month, which was hell of a lot, I believe, for those days. A quarter to live in.
Absolutely.
And free grain, and also a cow. for milk, to do it. So he saved money there. And that time, aspiring people all wanted to go to England. He was good in his studies. So the communities used to offer loan to the boys who were promising. So what my father did is not very nice. My first mother was pregnant and um, expecting a child. He left her with her parents in Bahawalpur, and without telling her, he moved to England and sent her a letter from in between saying that I'm going there to study.
That
Fortunately,
was
my
that was
fortunately,
quite
my
funny.
first mother's family was quite well off. They looked after her, and she was pregnant at that time. So her son was born in his absence. When he returned after doing his Cambridge and then Ireland bar at law, etc., at that time they used to call them England returned. It was very important that someone has been to England or studied there. So I believe the Baradari, the relatives and all would have more than relatives, the whole Boyar Brahman Baradari of Bahawalpur held a function for him with a band and all that. So then my poor first mother was upstairs. So then after that, he went to see her, and there was a boy following him, 7-year-old boy. And my father turned to him and said, "Hey, you, hey, boy, who are you? Why are you following me?" So then someone of the Biradari said, "That Sahib, he is your son." So I think my brother never forgave, the eldest brother never forgave my father for that.
I can well
Then, of
imagine.
course, much happened.
Yeah.
She passed away early. Then my mother came as the second wife. My mother was from Rawalpindi.
Acha. She was
Okay.
And we,
Where about
now
in
compared to
Rawalpindi?
Lahore,
Where
Rawalpindi
about?
ji, she used to live opposite, her father's house was opposite um, Raja Bazaar.
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Raja
Opposite
Bazaar, the
Rajasthan,
Samni,
that place is called
Raja Bazaar,
Dhokta.
lines of houses.
Right.
And what
Murray Road,
happened,
that's
you
called
know,
Murray Road.
um, huh?
Just to explain, that place is known as Murray Road, and the
Probably.
opposite to Raja Bazaar is Dhok Khamba. That is the name of the
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yes.
yeah.
And
So
then that is
she grew up in Ram, but she grew up since her mother died when she was very young. So when she was about 12, they felt, the Moyal Brahmins are very irresponsible kind of people. So the servant of the house said that the girl should not be alone. Her eldest sister was married. Uh, Kelia Wali Masjid in Rawalpindi. Kelia Wali Masjid, but Kelia Wali Masjid was some very famous.
Yeah.
And
yes,
Landa Bazaar. That area was known as Landa Bazaar.
Ganda Bazaar, and
My
then
mother,
I
Moti
spent
Bazaar was very
much time.
close.
Bilkul. Because I spent a lot of time in Rawalpindi in my childhood.
Acha.
Okay,
So that's
okay,
how
okay.
I know the places. That's how
And
I
I
know the.
taught I
Uh,
taught at Gordon College, Rawalpindi from
Hmm.
February 72 till June 73. So we all have a Rawalpindi connection.
Rawalpindi,
Rawalpindi
Dhok,
connection.
Road,
My
and
mother,
beautiful.
when she got married and went to Lahore, now compared to Lahore, Rawalpindi is a humble city. But she carried a chip on her shoulder that जो है वो साडा पठवार है रावलपिंडी है ਇਹ ਤੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰੀ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਚ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਗਈ ਹਾਂ. So she
But
kept
Rawalpindi
a
was
little superior
progressive.
edge that I'm from Rawalpindi.
Nirupama ji, Rawalpindi was a
She
very
felt that
progressive. It was a progressive city,
Rawalpindi
and
was,
people was very progressive, and people were quite educated there.
Not
Maybe
before 47, Mehal.
yeah,
I,
but the
Not
times
before.
I'm talking of, uh, my mother was 1914 born. So
Nine-
that time,
Yes.
our Biradari, the Moyal, these Brahmin Biradaris, and all, they were not very good to women. The girls were not sent in for education. They were kept very, very strict, I believe when she started going to some private school which a woman was teaching, they would have to go in a tanga with two chadars, and the tanga had a parda, less. So Rawalpindi was restrictive that way for Hindu girls, I think. It was not a very
Most certainly for Muslim
amiable
girls.
place.
Yeah. Conservative. Yeah.
Muslim girls also,
Yeah.
it
Definitely.
would be the same for Muslim girls. Probably.
Absolutely.
Those times were such.
Yeah, those times.
And yeah. But, she used to say that Lahore na she was talking of Hindu women, obviously. Lahore na te na ਘਰ ਚ petticoat ਪਾ ਕੇ ਫਿਰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੇਲਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਘਰ ਵਾਲੇ ਦੇ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਸਾੜੀ ਬੰਨਣਗੀਆਂ she says ਅਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਇੰਨੀ ਲੰਬੀ ਇੰਨੇ ਘੇਰੇ ਵਾਲੀ ਸਲਵਾਰ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਸਾਂ ਕਿ ਪੂਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗ ਲਾਈਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਲਵਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਭਰ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ she told these things and she says ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਲਾਹੌਰ ਨਾ ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ she'd say ਲਾਹੌਰ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਲੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਰ ਲੇਜ਼ੀ women ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ ਦੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਖਾ ਲੈਂਦੀਆਂ ਸਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਤੇ ਖੱਟੇ ਵਾਲਾ ਸਾਗ ਬਣਦਾ ਸੀ ਇੰਜ then she was very proud that her language
Potwari.
She was very proud that her language, her Potwari language was very sweet.
Okay.
I don't mind Ishtiyaq Sahab, you are from Lahore. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਇੰਜ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਸਨ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਵੱਟਾ ਮਾਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ whereas the Potwaris were very sweet, soft spoken, and I don't know how far it is true.
तो सानू पोटवारी आंदी है ऐसे बोलते हैं ना तो सानू पोटवारी आंदी है
no, what happened after partition my parents went to Shimla. He was in a government job, my father. And when he retired, that time Chandigarh had come up. So they decided to... Chandigarh was Nehru's compensation for the loss of Lahore. But nothing like Lahore. This was a city built by a foreigner, Le Corbusier city, and very, very modern, nothing traditional about it. No roots. It didn't have roots, These were mango growing area, mango groves, which were cut down to build Chandigarh. So then they moved to Chandigarh.
Yeah.
And BG can then ik din mainu badi khushi hoyi. While I was sitting in my veranda, te bahar ek kudi cycle chala rahi hai, 11-12 saal di kudi. Cycle chala rahi hai te naal सीटी बजा रही है. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ मैं क्या, this is what a change. Lahore te matlab ki Rawalpindi te imagine भी नहीं कितना जा सकता सी क्या हो सकता है. Then you see, I was born in 1955 and ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਘਰ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਨੇੜੇ government houses ਸਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ some extension of the Pakistan consulate was there. So I remember from a very early age, she would dress me up in the evening and send me with the ayah कि तू पाकिस्तान मासी ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਆ. Her elder sister was married to a doctor in the Pakistan army. His name was Revati Raban Bakshi. And she had an accident during World War II and he got epilepsy. So when partition happened, his friends told him, and he was a lazy person also, his friends told him, कि उत्थे जाके की करेगा? Ithe you have your own house, this. And I believe Pakistan Army, this is the story I'm told, was short of doctors. They said, if you go to India, teri te category low ho jayegi, because you have epilepsy. And you will get no promotion. You will remain the lieutenant colonel that you are. Here, there will be chances for promotion. So he decided to stay back in Rawalpindi in their own old Haveli, while his younger brother, mother, all migrated to India. So BG, my BG after her mother's death had grown up with her sister. So she used to long for her and weeping all the time. And then she would send me for a walk. Himasi nu mil ke aa. And there was one photograph there. And of course, Pakistan radio and a photograph of my Khala, Khalu, and their daughter. So we grew up imagining. So suddenly in 1959, the two governments relaxed some conditions and said people who have blood relatives can visit Pakistan.
Ah,
So my uncle's, my master's younger brother, who was then settled in Hyderabad in uh,
Tenth.
maybe
India,
Deccan,
Hyderabad,
Deccan.
and another cousin of my mother, whose parents were in Sialkot, and my mother, her real sister, was in Rawalpindi. So passports were made, and she could take children who were dependent on her, small children. I was 4 years old then, and we set off for train from Amritsar to Lahore. My mother never bothered to stop. It had to be straight to
Rawalpindi.
Rawalpindi, and even Lahore, nothing was left also. And when I reached Rawalpindi, they had come to the station to pick us up. Now, I, having grown in Chandigarh, where, horse carts and all were prohibited from the very beginning because it was a modern city. When I saw a tanga at the railway station, I got scared. Then, anyway, he had an old, small little car, my Masaji. My mother and I were put there. My brother, who was about 5 years older to me, and the luggage and others came in the tonga. And one sight which I don't forget, oh, Karsi bilkul purane zamane di haveli ji, dry lavatories, ਬਾਹਰ ਥੜੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਐਂਟਰੈਂਸ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਨਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਟੂ ਦ ਹਾਊਸ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਾਂ ਤੇ ਮਾਸੀ ਗਲੇ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਹੈ ਡਿਓੜੀ 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 ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਹਾਂ ਹਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਰੋ ਕੇ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਅੱਧਾ ਘੰਟਾ ਤੇ ਖੜੀ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਰੋਂਦੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਰਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਰਸਤੇ ਖੁੱਲ ਗਏ ਤੇ from then to before the 1965 war with my mother I visited Rawalpindi for 4 times and after the relations became sour in 1965
One
war
question to you. This
then
family
there was no
which was
permission
in-
to go there
after 65, when this connection was snapped, the family stayed on in Pakistan and they are still there, the family and the children,
they
or what
stayed
happened
on
to them?
they had one daughter
They live in
and they stayed
Rawalpindi?
on in Pakistan because my uncle Rawalpindi.
And they
And
remain
there were some very famous Kadar motors in Rawalpindi. They were very good friends of my Masari, Kadar motors,
So
I
what
think.
I'm saying, they remained
Oh,
Hindus?
he was looked after very well. ਇੱਕ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਗੱਲ ਯਾਦ ਆਈ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਚਪਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਭਰਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ since he was in the army and the army looked after him pretty well,
ठीक है.
Those days there was no Bangladesh war, nothing. Those were good times. And General Niazi ਦੀ ਵਾਈਫ ਤੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨੀ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਣ ਆਏ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਆਣੇ my brother and I they came, they spoke to us and then they ran to their mother and said ਅੰਮੀ ਇਹ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ so that was the connecting this I remember
So touching.
Yes.
Then what
so
happened
you were
was
thinking of reciting some poetry, you told me. What was the plan? Were you
yeah
thinking
I
of-
would love to
Yeah.
because you see this great the great divide and whatever followed I think people who really kept everyone alive were the writers, the poets on both sides.
Yes.
Now, I will recite a poem by one of our very famous Hindi poets, who was also my Muh Bola Pai, and he was my mentor also, called Kumar Vikal.
अच्छा
He was interestingly from Wazirabad, but his
ah
father used Wazirabad. His father
you
used to
know
run a bakery.
Krishan Chandar was also from Wazirabad.
Krishan Chandra was also from. So when in recent years, in some 7, 8 years, 10, no more than that, 10, 11 years ago, when I went to Lahore, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਲਾਇਬ੍ਰੇਰੀ ਬਣਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਚੰਦਰ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਫੋਟੋ
अच्छा
ਤੇ
अच्छा
ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਜੀ ਕੁਮਾਰ ਵਿਕਲ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਣੀ ਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਡਿਡ ਇਟ ਦੇ ਪੁੱਟ ਕੁਮਾਰ ਵਿਕਲਸ ਪਿਕਚਰ देयर ਆਲਸੋ
oh
and
lovely
his father had a bakery in Raja Bazaar and he used to supply this morning breakfast food to the British cantonment
Such a interesting
Sugandh ke
history.
beach
Yes.
betwixt memory and fragrance कितना अच्छा लगता है दफ्तर की फाइलों से लड़ते हुए अचानक के जंगली फूलों को याद करना बचपन की स्मृतियों को याद करना कितना अच्छा लगता है दफ्तर की फाइलों से भिड़ते हुए अचानक पुठार के जंगली फूलों को याद करना बचपन की स्मृतियों को याद करना स्कूल की आखिरी घंटी का इंतजार करना खेतों में तीतर बटेर पकड़ना बेरियों पर चढ़ना उतरना हाँ बड़ी माम के मेले से लौटते हुए गबरू जवानों के गीत सुनना बहुत दूर दूर तक उनकी कराचियों के पीछे भागना बूढ़ी सकीना की मुर्गियों के अंडे चुराना और आधी रात तक कब्रिस्तान में बैठकर डाकू के किस्से सुनना सुनाना और उन परियों की कल्पना करना जो हमारे एक जमाती की माँ के गोरे गोरे हाथ पैरों पर मेहंदी लगा जाती थी
वाह
कितना अच्छा लगता है स्मृति और सुकंध में इस तरह को समानात्मक शब्द समझना दुखद लगता है तो सिर्फ सन 47 का आ जाना और तब आग नाम की हर चीज से घबराना
wow.
so
Wow.
this was the he came as a young boy
Hmm.
I can
uh,
imagine
14 or something
Hmm.
Hmm.
and our last trip with my mother to Pakistan was when my khala passed away
Oi,
then relatives helped and I of course was the youngest daughter who had to accompany her
Hmm.
and that was the last time we went in 1969 I was
Hmm.
already 14 and it was also very interesting because that time I think Biradaris lived in one gully. So this gully where they lived, they were all Hindu, mostly from our own clan. And finally, that had gone to the refugees who came from UP to Rawalpindi. So around them were people from, and I'll tell you how terrible Punjabis are. ਪਹਿਲੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਭਰਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਬਚਪਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਗੋਰਾ ਚਿੱਟਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਹਨੀਫ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਹਨੀਫ ਪਾਨ ਵਾਲਾ ਵੈਰੀ ਨਾਈਸ ਜੋਵੀਅਲ ਮੈਨ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਲੈ ਤੂੰ ਤੇ ਚੰਗਾ ਗੋਰਾ ਚਿੱਟਾ ਇਹ ਮਦਰਾਸਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲੈ ਆਇਆ that is the Punjabi prejudice against her and ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਿਆ 6 ਫੁੱਟ ਉੱਚੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੈ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਭੇਜ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਕਾਲੇ ਕਲੂਟੇ ਯੂਪੀ ਤੋਂ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਾਗ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਦੱਸਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਹਨੀਫ ਯੂਜ਼ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਦੱਸਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਗ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਪੁਦੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਬਾਗ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਨ so that
ਜਿਹੜੇ
was also now that I look back
ਦਿੱਲੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗਏ ਸਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਿੱਲੀੋਂ ਗਏ ਸਨ
ਦਿੱਲੀ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਯੂਪੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਏ ਸੀ
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯੂਪੀ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸਨ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਨ their stories were also equally terrible the way they had come and settled there.
Yes.
And then Punjabis are a very, very...
Punjabi prejudice te reha na sir. Yes ji. Tillier we ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ UP ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ because they spoke very fast.
Yeah, it is returned. It is returned.
Yes.
Every community has its prejudice. But what I learned and what I really enjoyed in my childhood years in Rawalpindi, ਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਬੜਾ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਸੀ। ਦੁਕਾਨ ਤੇ ਜਾਓ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਲੈਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਣੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਲੈ ਜਾਓ। ਹੌਸਪਿਟੈਲਿਟੀ ਬੜੀ। ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਈਦ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ। ਹੁਣ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ this story I learned much later what happened in Chandigarh. These were all villages which were put together and made into the city. This I learned when I'd become a journalist and I was reporting on partition. ਇੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਬੜੈਲ ਪਿੰਡ ਸੀ, ਹੁਣ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਬੜਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਬੜੈਲ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਹੈ। So I believe the Muslims were put in a line. Muslims were all workers, working class Muslims. They were put in a line and they were shot at time of partition. So even the area of Chandigarh was also not free from being blooded and clean. So we had never seen a Punjabi Muslim. We had only seen Muslims from other areas, Bihari Muslim or UP the Muslim. We didn't know that there are Punjabi Muslims.
दोनों पासियों.
And very painful stories.
Very painful stories.
मेरे फुआ ना,
डॉक्टर साहब एक सवाल ज़हन च है.
her father was a...
If you like to respond to this one, लोकी जड़ा साड़ा program देखते ने, people who are our audience, they is that, and I think it's a very pertinent question we should be thinking about. When my generation is gone, and these stories, because I had an immediate connection with my grandfather who migrated, and you had an immediate connection with your grandparents who migrated. So we actually, in a way, if we not experienced it firsthand, we met people, we grew up with people who experienced it firsthand, the partition. When we are gone, how shall our next generations relate to these stories? What will it mean to them, the partition? Or will another good nostalgia bhi nahi hai, sada te hai? How do you think about it? As a poet, I think it's a very
yes.
good person to respond
yes,
to this.
I don't know, but I think as it is, as children, when we would ask our parents, "Ke partition kyun hua?" the thing they would say, there was a great, which our writers like Urvashi Batalia, Kamla Bhasin have pointed out, a great conspiracy of silence about partition. It was so horrendous that no one wanted to talk about it or admit it. So the reply my mother would give me hai, Angreza ne karaya. Jo karaya, Angreza ne karaya. In a way, they were the culprits of it all. But, my bhua was, when partition was happening, in Punjab, there's a city called Philor. So her husband was in agriculture. Utho, they pulled out a girl, Jalandhar they called Philor. Utho un police training college hai the. They pulled out a girl from who was going to Pakistan. She was from Aligarh Muslim University, an educated girl. Pulled her out, humiliated her, dragged her through the streets, saying that Bol Hindustan Zindabad. That girl, grant her her spirit. She was humbled, humiliated, God knows what else. She kept on shouting, Pakistan Paimdabad, till she died. Any community wanting you to speak of your killers or rapists and say Hindustan Zindabad. So that was the spirit of people. I think that's how people survived in both the countries in spite of this uh, big tragedy, the greatest tragedy we had ever, I think, one of the greatest and largest tragedies the world had seen.
You know
And
what
then we
people,
had Ishtiaq Sahib, who has played a very important role in bringing it all back, even uniting some people. And we're talking about it. So, as you say, as long as there is this literature, there will always be a segment of people who
that's
will
it, who
uh,
will connect with it, who will connect it,
who will
and
always feel
and who
emotional
will
about it.
continue to
Who
talk
will not?
about
There
it.
will always be a
I'll I'll give you an
segment of
example.
people.
I'll give you
And
an example.
when the two countries are not warring,
So you
Yes,
were
please.
telling us
हम तो
the
आप ही को
question is how will the coming generations remember this? ਤੁਹਾਡਾ response है कि some people will continue to talk about it. This is what you're saying, हाँ जी?
yes,
Yes.
people will talk about it. But it's not something that can be forgotten.
I'll give you one example just to substantiate what you are saying. You know, in my latest editions, if you have seen them, of the Punjab book, there is a story about a Sikh woman who was just before partition married to a Sikh in Lahore, but she belonged to where in Amritsar is the airport, Raja Sansi, that village.
I wanted to share one thing,
Hmm.
because um, if someone asked me when I was young, or even when I was an adult, that where are you from? So I would say I'm from Chandigarh. So there was this very famous Punjabi writer, Kulwant Singh Virk, who had come from the other side. So he was at that time press secretary to the Badal government in Punjab. And he used to come to newspaper offices and that sort of, a brilliant writer with beautiful stories on partition. So he says, what do you mean Chandigarh? No one belongs to Chandigarh. Where was, uh, tell me where your parents were from. So I said, gee, my mother was from Rawalpindi, my father was from Lahore. He says, stop saying that you are from Chandigarh. You say you are daughter of three capitals. So
That's
when
beautiful.
I'm
That's
now,
beautiful.
when I'm asked, I say I'm daughter of three capitals.
हम इस्लामाबाद के बारे में भी यही कहते हैं भाई, because Islamabad came into existence in 1960s.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean.
Yeah, Islamabad and Chandigarh have a lot in common.
Nobody belongs there actually. Yes.
No one belongs there.
Yes.
Any
And
other point you have?
I'll try to recite from memory because then otherwise I go wrong. Of course,
Recite
little
your own poem.
few lines of one poem, which and a little two or three things about it. Of course, our Amrita Preetham, the
जी,
Gujranwala girl who grew up in Lahore.
जी,
ਅੱਜ
जी।
ਆਖਾਂ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਕਬਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੋਲ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਕਿਤਾਬੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਅਗਲਾ ਵਰਕਾ ਖੋ ਇੱਕ
वाह।
ਰੋਈ ਸੀਤੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਤੂੰ ਲਿਖ ਲਿਖ ਮਾਰੇ ਵੈਣ ਅੱਜ ਲੱਖਾਂ ਧੀਆਂ ਰੋਂਦੀਆਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣ ਉੱਠ ਦਰਦਮੰਦਾ ਦੇ ਆ ਦਰਦੀਆ ਉੱਠ ਤੱਕ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਅੱਜ ਬੇਲੇ ਲਾਸ਼ਾਂ ਪਟਕਦੀਆਂ ਲਹੂ ਦੀ ਪਰੀ ਚਨਾਬ. And this poem, unfortunately, coming after partition, as it is, since she was a woman writer, the male prejudice badi si. ਪਰ ਪਾਰਟੀਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਈ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਨ ਬੜੇ ਅਨੋਏ ਹੋਏ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਨਜ਼ਮ ਉਹਨੇ ਵਾਰਿਸ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਉਂ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ. Now you see Waris Shah was a symbol of the togetherness of the two cultures, the two religions.
अच्छा ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬੈਕਗ੍ਰਾਉਂਡ ਹੈ
ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਸਨ
ਜੀ
ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬੈਕਗ੍ਰਾਉਂਡ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਸਟ ਸਨ ਉਹ ਕਹਿਣ why didn't she address Waris Shah? So, you'll find crazy people all over the place.
What did the communists say?
It had to be Waris Shah.
What did the communists say? What did the communists say?
वो कहते कि वारिस शाह
It should have been the Soviet Union wale ke it should have been addressed to Lenin. Why has she chosen Varisha? But you know, since those times to these times, what is hopeful is
look at that. My God.
from those times to these times.
तो कुछ आप आखिर में हमारे लिए if you like to share something toward the end of our discussion today, कोई ऐसी चीज
Nirupama, you want to tell us? It's your
yes. Now I will share a grudge that I have with my mother. जिन्नी बार वो मैंने पाकिस्तान लेके गई उन्होंने मैंने लाहौर नहीं वेखण दिता. Lahore, I got a chance to see in 2002 or 3 because of one Punjabi conference.
Okay.
Then I realized BG was, not fair. She and the kind of love, the warmth, and the sheer beauty of Lahore is unforgettable. My one wish is, now I'm 70, my one wish is to visit Lahore once more.
Welcome.
And
you surely
we still don't have a city like Lahore in Punjab here.
City the Lahore
So before we
so
go,
ठीक ही है कि जिस लाहौर नहीं तक क्या वो जमिया नहीं.
So की पसंद आया तानू लाहौर दा देख के, but what do you really cherish
about Lahore?
Oh, I just loved it. The people, the mood of Lahore, and the hospitality, the warmth. It was just lovely. And Lahore as a city with its culture, its history. Chandigarh is a poor city here, which we are living in. A city without history.
Would Delhi be comparable to Lahore, you think?
Yes, Delhi.
That's
Delhi, you're very right. Delhi is comparable to
comparable.
Lahore.
That's right.
But maybe Lahore becomes dearer to Punjabis. Lahore becomes dearer to Punjabis.
By all means, it's such a. मेरा तो दिल नहीं चाह रहा कि ये इस तरह हम इसको abruptly खत्म कर दें आज की गुफ्तगू को, लेकिन another time maybe we would like to listen to more of your stories, definitely more of your poetry. आज के लिए इजाजत लेंगे इसलिए कि हमारा भी एक recording time का slot होता है, so we have to go for the next thing. Dr. Saab, very kind of you always. You introduce such lovely people. Nirupama ji, it was a pleasure listening to you and would love to meet you.
My pleasure too. I'm so happy.
Lahore is very beautiful these days. बहुत खूबसूरत मौसम है लाहौर में. ये एक महीना 2 महीने जो होते हैं when they क्या कहते हैं spring time. It's lovely. Yes, spring is beautiful in Lahore.
Inshallah, Lahore once more.
But I remember
एक बार तो लाहौर और आना ही है. मैं अपनी बेटी और ग्रैंडडॉटर को कहती हूँ कि एक बार जाएंगे.
जरूर बहुत वेलकम. आपके यहाँ भी होंगे. शरीन दा दरख्त होता है, शरीन दा जो पापड़ लगते हैं. It has beautiful scent in the air. I know. Can relate.
I know.
So all the best. Very warm wishes.
Thank you so much for making me a part of this. In spite of my telephone misbehaving many times, but it has been, I think I treasure these moments.
Your city well, your people well. बहुत आपका शुक्रिया अदा करेंगे. आपने हमें वक्त दिया, हमसे बात की.
बहुत शुक्रिया.
इजाजत देंगे आज के लिए.
And now I say goodbye and namaste. The Lahorians were very amused when I Namaste. So namaste and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Inshallah, another time.